Hello. I'm Mike Skirko. I'm on the board of directors of the San Francisco Independent Film Festival, and I am absolutely delighted to have Dead Fishes, director, producer. We've got everyone here. So you guys know who I am. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
So hello, my name is Kanako Fujita. I'm the producer of this film, Dead Fishes. I'm quite delighted to be here and thank you for inviting us and very excited for this Q&A. So yeah, thank you for having us. 自己紹介をお願いします。
はい、レッドペイシーズのディレクターをさせていただきました金子です。お願いいたします。
All right. And so with that, I'm really excited. Finished watching the film, had a lot of thoughts. And the first question I like to ask any director is inspiration. Dead Fishes のインスピレーションはどこからさっき話したけど、どうぞ。
インスピレーション。
うん。
ありがとうございます。もともとこの映画自体、いろんな、その事件というか、日本の、そういう、いろんな日本の事件というか、そこからなんか着想させてもらって、実際の、それをいろいろオマージュをして、オリジナルのフィール、オリジナルのドラマにしましたけど、実際日本では、いろんな事件がある中で、報道として、報道される内容自体が、本当に事件だけで、事件のその詳細は明かさずに、その背景、どういう人がなんでこういう事件を起こしたのかみたいなものを明かさずに、ただ報道されるだけだったので、僕らみたいな作り手の人間としては、やっぱりその背景に、どういった背景があるのかみたいなのを描きたかったというところが、今回の一応、インスピレーションしたところですね。
I'll briefly summarize, and then Kanako, if you'd like to add any more to anything I'm saying. I mean, effectively, this is something that was in the news. This is like the character Yuriko was a person who had been involved in this sort of poisoning, and it's not massively uncommon in the world, but it's a very unusual topic for this film. And Kanako, was there anything else I'm missing as far as the background on where the inspiration came from beyond what was in the news?
Yeah, that it is pretty much it actually. But if I may add something, there are a lot of newses, unfortunately, regarding the aging society, and it's quite a big social problem that we are dealing here in Japan. So, and we also hear a lot of newses regarding that and a lot of like homicide going on due to the aging society. So but we only see those incidents on the news and we don't really get into the details of what is behind of those incidents. So we wanted to explore what could have been happened behind the scenes. And so the main purpose of this film is about like wondering what could have been happened behind the scenes and just sort of like imagining the process and the society throughout the film.
Right. And for some of the audience, certainly in the United States, some people are aware of course, the fact that Japan has a largely aging society. There's a low birth rate. It's something that's been going on. My understanding is for the last 20 or 30 years. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And it's becoming more visible. So this film, in its location, one of the things they mentioned in the film is the town. It's not really in the center of Tokyo. It's not Shibuya. It's on the outskirts, and in this area, there seems to be a fairly large amount of older people. Can we talk just briefly about the area the filming was done in? We spoke about it before. Part of it was filmed in Chiba. Part of it was filmed in Tokyo, but not in the center. Can you address that a bit, just as far as where the area was, where we have the large populations of older people?
Yeah, of course. ロケ地について何か言いたいことありますか？
そうですね。今回その舞台とさせていただいたのが、東京の郊外、その東京のきらびやかな街ではなくて、ちょっと離れた郊外の街で、ちょっとその他の、普通に東京に憧れる人からすると、そう地味なというか、 少し質素な街を舞台にさせていただきました。本当にその東京っていう街自体が日本では、象徴として、資本主義社会の象徴みたいなイメージがある中で、その中にある、実際の東京の裏側というか、その背景には、下火になっていってるというか、廃れていってる東京の街中があるという事実みたいなところにある物語を描きたかったというのが今回のポイントになってます。
And so basically, as you mentioned, Kanako, well, the area was central, but not massively in the center of
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo. And it is common that you have areas that are more central with a lot of people where you will find more young people. Certainly,
Yeah.
Shibuya comes to mind. But there are areas on the outskirts where you could feel that some of the areas are almost entirely older people. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the area where this film was done. And
Yeah.
also, this film is has already premiered. It's been in Los Angeles. If you could talk just a bit about the festivals that you've gone to and what's coming up next.
Well, so the only festival we went to so far was the Los Angeles Japan Film Festival, and the response was quite positive. We attended the Q&A as well, and yeah, I think audience quite liked it, and we got Best Cinematographer award, so that was great. And we are also having a theatrical screening in Japan. We started our actual release in 2022 December. So it's been going around for about a year, and then we are still having another screenings coming up. So yeah,
And you mentioned there
that's
was another screening in Tokyo in February. Where is that?
yes, that is gonna be in Koenji, Tokyo. So
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna have another screening for about a week or 2 weeks.
And
So that's mm-hmm.
as far as cinematography, so it stands out. Like there's a number of scenes in the movie, people's faces, people's eyes, certainly the fish heads, the cleaning of the fish, and
Mm-hmm.
the we spoke about this previously, but the title of the film, like dead fishes,
Mm-hmm.
and the image of the fishes being cut, and then the image of all of the fish looking like they were rotting towards the end. Maybe if we could talk just a little bit about the title of the film, like what exactly does that mean to you? Dead fishes.
Dead fishes. That's an interesting question because actually our Japanese film is different from Dead Fishes. So the Japanese title for that is Bokura minna ikiteiru, which means we are all alive.
One more time. Can you say it slowly?
Yeah. Bokura wa minna ikiteiru.
Boku, like me.
Bokura, so us, we are all, wa minna ikiteiru. So the literal translation would be we are all alive. And we changed that to the English title, which is Dead Fishes, because as you mentioned, our like the dead fishes is has been used in our film as sort of like a signature of the people who are living but doesn't have the spirit or doesn't have the energy to survive, and that has been sort of like iconic symbol in our film. So that's why we decided to use the word as a dead fishes.
Dead
Um,
fishes was awesome title. And
thank you.
there's a lot of aspects of Japanese society that most people outside of Japan have never heard of, have no idea,
Mm,
don't understand.
mm-hmm,
Certainly the aging population in Japan is a thing. Most people who know about that. But the dead fishes, and we spoke about this previously, her roommate was an OL, and
mm-hmm,
that is a common thing. It stands for office lady, and it's something that doesn't really exist as a job in the United States. But for the longest time, and I'm talking a country that has yet to have a Me Too movement, there are many jobs in Japan that are called OL or office lady. And you would join a company, and main function would be like serving tea, and that would be it. So it's kind of seen as a dead end, horrible job. Usually it ends when someone gets pregnant, has a baby, and then quits. That's it, end of
mm-hmm,
career. It's a really strange thing. But can you talk a little bit about, when she mentions the dead fish, and
mm-hmm.
can you talk a bit about that? Because that I think is really fascinating culturally.
Yeah, for sure. I think it would be better to be explained by the director. So, yeah, 死んだ魚っていうモチーフが映画の中でよく使われてると思うんですけど、その OL、のキャラクターが、基本的には事務とかをやり続けて、そのまま、なんかそのまま廃れていくみたいな、割と、デッドエンドな感じっていうのが、その死んだ魚のように生きているっていうので割と似てるっていうか、方向性が似てるキャラクターにあると思うんですけど、個人のセリフの中でも、フィッシュ、死んだ魚の目をしたように生きるくらいならっていうセリフがあると思うんで、そこの関連性っていうものを伺いたいです。
ああ、そうですね。その彼女が、一人のOL の女の子が、死んだ魚のような目をして生きているぐらいなら死んだ方がマシっていうセリフを言うんですけど、それはあくまでも全体の象徴的な言葉として使わせていただいて、彼女自身が、実際に、いわゆるその周りから見たら裕福に暮らしているというか、その満たされているであるはずである彼女が、そういうセリフを言うことに意味があって、本当にこう、主人公たちからしたら、ある意味、こう、社会に溶け込んでいる人っていうのは羨ましい存在でありながら、自身が浮いている象徴。で、その中で、主人公たちは、あの、お互い寂しい感情を持った人間たちが寄り添っていって歪んだ人間になっていくっていう流れになってるんですけど、と言いつつも、OL の人たちだったり、社会に溶け込んでる人たちが、本当にこうやりたいことをやれてるわけじゃなくて、ただ生きているだけで、実際はその死んだ魚のような生き方をしているっていうのを、皮肉っていうっていうのが、その彼女の役としてそのセリフを言わしたかったっていうところです。
うんうん。Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and translate some of that? Because I missed some of it for
Uh,
sure.
Okay, okay. So yeah, basically, so the line itself about her talking about living like a dead fish is not only addressed to her living style, but also for the societies, because it's quite common for the younger generation to live and just work without thinking about the future or thinking about anything they're passionate about, and then just like surviving their lives. And like dead fishes, which is sort of like a way of saying in Japanese, to address someone who just do stuff to survive, but without having any energies or having any passions. And so the line itself was addressed to those kind of people, and then we tried to make it sort of ironic by letting her say it because she is aware of the situation of what kind of situation she's in, and she's sort of like ironically accepting the fact of the destiny per se. Yeah.
It's interesting too, because there's actually two things that come out culturally that you've seen over the last 10, 20, 30 years. And certainly that character with her at that point when she's explaining to him that, basically I'm a dead fish, she'd also been effectively prostituting herself with the Kaicho-san, the chairman, and,
Mm-hmm.
going to love hotels with him. And that's something
Yeah.
else you certainly read in the news that there are young girls in Japan who will have either a boyfriend who's very very much older or just straight up
Mm-hmm.
paid so that they can buy purses and handbags and Gucci. And it's
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it passes so quickly in the film, but knowing a bit about Japan, when you see that, you're like, ah, yeah, that's a big cultural impact. And if you didn't see it coming, it might miss you, but it's really important, and it's interesting to see. We, as we spoke earlier today, what I like to describe as Japan. It's not it's not Hello Kitty. Like, this is the
Mm-hmm.
real Japan. And this
Yeah.
is when you talk about, Oba-chan, the grandmother, she had dementia, whether it was Alzheimer's or just old age dementia. And it was interesting to watch her as part of the family, and the discussion when they delivered the bento boxes to the old people's home. When she left, um, she said, "Yeah, basically the people here are here because their families have abandoned them." And it's kind of, with a society with so many older people, it's a
Mm-hmm.
very negative statement, But then when you look at home and Obachan is having, I would say, not a very good quality of life at home, it was just something that I watched that and was like, wow. Um, one of the things that I'd love to have some input on is background of everyone. Um,
Mhm.
Director's first film is this, yes, and actors, some of them so famous that you notice them and you're like, oh, like Kaicho-san has been in many, many movies. Can you talk just a
Yeah.
little bit about the background of everyone who's involved in the film as far as the actors and also your background too? Because Kanako, beyond being a producer, my understanding is you were involved actually in some of the writing and putting this all together. So if you could just
Mhm.
give us background on yourselves as well as the actors and actresses.
Of course, of course. So starting from the actor's background, so the protagonist, Shun, is he's a quite a new actor, but he's getting quite popular now, and this is his first feature film to do the main character. But he's been in a couple of the films as a side character. Um, but I would say like this is his one of his like the biggest films so far he has. And the heroine character, the actress Yuka, this is her second this is her first feature as well. And the other actor Kaicho, he's been a quite popular actor in Japan now. He unfortunately passed away 2 years ago.
Oh.
So yeah. But before that, he attended a lot of film, appeared in many films and TV shows as well. TV shows, so a lot of Japanese people recognize his faces as well. And also, there's another quite famous actresses in the film as well, which is Shun's mother. She doesn't have that much appearance times, but she is also a quite famous character. And the reason we have her was that like the mother, the character itself is quite important to explain the Shun's background. So we decided to include her to sort of have the sort of the authenticity of the mother's character. So despite the short appearance time, we can still have this sort of atmosphere created by her parents. And yeah, my background is that I studied film studies in the UK university, and then during the COVID, I took a gap year because the university was closed completely and moved to online. And during that time, I started doing the internship, also helped with the producing and all. So that's where I met the director Kaneko, who is here today, and we started developing feature film script. And the starting point of this project was actually during that internship period. And he started talk first time he said wanted to write a feature film about the younger generation, like realistic story of the younger generation in Japan. So that was actually the starting point of our film, and I really appreciate that you recognize so many like elements in the film because that's what we wanted to achieve actually, to sort of represent the actual reality of the younger generation. So like what kind of problems that they face in the reality. Um, so yeah, that's how we started developing the script, and I didn't do the writing part, so most of the writing and all that has done by director Kaneko. And yeah, and I did the rest of the producing, and yeah, that's pretty much it for the background.
Nice.
Hmm.
And this is the first feature film for director Kaneko. And 次のフィルムは考えてますか？
監督の次の作品は
うん。
予定はあり
今、
ますか？
そうですね、いろいろと、藤田とも企画を考えさせていただいたりしながら、次のフィルムでもやっぱり、今、これから考えているのは、日本でやっぱり今いろんな問題が起きてて、今の、いわゆる若者に限らずなんですけど、日本で生きていくにはすごく生きづらい世の中がすごくあります。で、その中で、特に若者たちが、どこに居場所を置いていいのかわからない子たちが本当に多い中で、あの、まあ、すごい時代の変化というか、流れというか、 日本の中で、なんかやりたいことをやって生きていくには、まあ、すごくこう、競争社会にもなってるし、まあ、それが多分世界では当たり前だと思うんですけど、それを、こう、光を当てられる、こう、場所が、やっぱり日本は今少なくなってるんじゃないかなと思ってるんで、そういう人たちにフォーカスが当たるような作品を作りたいなと思ってます。
So, I mean, I'll take a quick stab at that, but effectively, some of the problems of young people today in Japan, and Kaneko, can you help me out with the rest of the issues of the young people in Japan today and what the problems might be?
So, some of the stuff has been covered in our film as well regarding sort of like younger generation, especially the girls selling their bodies to the older guys to get the quick money, and also about the aging society. So our generation have to take care of our like fathers, parent generation, and even older generation. They're like financially struggling to maintain the cares as well. And also the salaries has been decreasing, but then the living cost is starting to increase. So there's a gap between sort of like increasing the living cost versus the very like stable salary. So they're having the problems maintaining their living quality. So there's that as well. And yeah.
So, with I mean, one of the other things that isn't exactly addressed in this film, but is the people in the country leaving the country and moving to the city. And I don't think
Mm,
young people say want to be a farmer, want to be a fisherman. They want to get out of the country, and because of that, homes in the country are losing value, and people are moving to the city. Are there areas
mm,
in the city that are predominantly young people? It used to be Shibuya, maybe Shimokitazawa. Parts of Shinjuku, are there new areas that are popping up that are very popular with the young people where they get together and have a chance to kind of commune with each other?
は、どっか東京で新しく若者の聖地みたいな感じで集まって人気になってるとこってありますか？
そうですね。若者の聖地、どうなんやろ。俺も東京の人間じゃねえからな。う
う
ん、でもなん
ーん。
か、最近本当に渋谷に関しても、まあそれこそ新宿に関しても池袋にしても、まあそれぞれの街でなんか新しい文化ができてるんじゃないかなと思ってて、まあそれがイコールですごいこうポジティブないい文化ではなくて、まあ本当にこう、ただ単に、まあ、渋谷であったらなんか、こう仮想のハロウィンになったら人が集まって問題になってとかっていう、なんかすごいこう、まあ、そんなにこう、深みのない問題というか、があったりとか、人間関係の軽薄さみたいなのがすごい明白になっていってたりとか、で、新宿は新宿で若者たちが、まあ今、東横キッズって言われてる子たちが、まあ10代の若者たちが居場所なく全国からそこに集まって、まあ本当にその場しのぎの人間関係を作ったりとか、まあでもその背景にはやっぱりこう、まあそれぞれ居場所がない環境みたいなのがあるからこそ、なんかその、どこが居場所を探して集まっていってるっていうのが、その東京っていう街に、まあ、その反映されてるんじゃないかなと思ってて、まあ、そのいい面はもちろん東京にはいっぱいあります。夢もあって、まあ、そのチャンスもあって、その仕事をしていく上ですごくこう、やりやすい環境っていうのはもちろんあるとは思うんですけど、まあ、同時にそれをつかめない人たちの方がほとんどで、まあ、その人たちの、その子たちの、まあ、代弁できるような作品であったりとか、その子たちに共感できるような作品はこれからも生み出したいな。
And so, yeah, effectively there are a lot of places in Tokyo. Some of them, of course, are famous, like Shibuya, Ikebukuro, Shinjuku. But there are some other areas that are coming up popular with youth culture, um, and you know, it's interesting with regards to youth culture and hanging out, like where people go that's not inside. It's been a long time, but I'd say maybe 15, 20 years ago, I know that there were parts of Shimokitazawa that were really popular with young people. And if it was 10, 11 o'clock at night, you could get off a train and people would be there, you know, playing music, hip hop, dancing, break dancing, drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, just right there outside the station. And it wasn't like, let's go to a nightclub. It was just, we're young people and we're hanging out. And if you go way back, yeah, Harajuku, Takeshita Dori, those areas massively popular with young people, and people would come from all over Japan to be there, to be young there. And I mean, there's a lot of movies that have portrayed that. One of them is uh, it doesn't matter. You will see people come from all over Japan for Yoyogi, for Harajuku, for Takeshitadori, and these places like have the power to pull all the young people together. And it's interesting as people continually see the countryside kind of disappear. And I'm wondering if right now in Japan, is there any interest in the youth to go back to the country, or is that not even considered? The city center is considered the place.
That is a quite interesting question, but I think now it's actually getting easier for the younger generation to go back to the countryside because a lot of companies now started allowing working remotely.
Ah,
So they don't have to come to the office, which is oftentimes it's located in the central areas, but like because they can just take the laptop and move to the other side of the country, then yeah, I think it's relatively easier. And because of the social media, it's when they wanted to start a new business relating to, I don't know, farming or anything, they can just like start their businesses using the social media.
right.
So I think like the necessity of like themselves being in the central is not really as important as like 50 years ago.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting
yeah.
after, the COVID and Corona lockdown, in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
like how things have changed culturally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's funny too with youth and youth culture, with being on Zoom meetings instead of being in person. Because for the longest time in Japan, if you lived in the country, you worked in Tokyo, you took a train, sometimes 2 hours each way every day.
Mm-hmm.
And now to me that seems horrible. I can't imagine if you're young now, and that's the thing also in Japan. They mention hatachi. That
Mm.
means 20, you're an adult.
Yeah.
You're a legal
Yeah.
adult. You can drink, you can smoke, you can whatever. You are an adult. And it was interesting in the movie too, when his mom came to visit, and she wanted to still kind of control, but he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "I'm an adult. I'm out."
Mm.
Um, in the United States, they call it boomerang. You have people
Mm-hmm.
who finish college, they can't get a job, so they go out and they come right back home, and they live
Mm.
26, 27, 28, sometimes longer. Is that
Mm-hmm.
a phenomena in Japan, or do most youths like say, "Hatachi, I'm out," and they leave?
Well, I think it's like boomerang is definitely a thing in Japan as well. Especially people who grew up in the city area because the rent is just too expensive to afford by themselves. So a lot of the times they stay in their like family home until they're 30s, and then they just like start their jobs, but then they just like keep their family home, and then maybe they move out when they get married or something. I think it might be different for the people who grew up in the countryside, but yeah, it is quite a common thing. Yeah. なんか、大人になっても成人しても、まだなんか実家にいたりとかっていうのは割と若い世代だとよくあることですよね。
うん、そうですね。若い世代、まあ、特に関東だったらよくあるんですが、東京の方、なんかそういうイメージがあるけど、
うん。
うん。まあ、今回実はその20歳っていうのは一つポイントでは出してるんですけど、まあ、その主人公が、それこそ周りから見て大人って思われる年齢がまさにその日本でいうと20歳っていうふうに、まあ今捉えられてて、で、やっぱり日本って、まあそれこそ SNS がすごいこう今当たり前になっている中で、まあ東京も人がいっぱいいるっていうところで、その周りの目を気にしながら生きていかなきゃいけないっていう環境が、まあ、うん、多いというか、で、それによって生きづらさみたいなところがかなり、濃厚になっていってるんじゃないかなと思ってて、その中で、その20歳で大人になっていく主人公が、まあ、その自分をどんどん見失っていってる状態。 本当にその自分が何者かわからない中で、最終的にはその自分らしく生きるっていうことが、誤った方向で、かつ、誰かと寄り添って、自分の居場所を見つけた時に、結果としては、ネガティブなことにはなってるんですけど、映画の中では。実際その本人の、主人公たちからしたらポジティブな関係値っていうのを描きたかったというのが、映画の中でポイントかなと思います。なので、僕らみんな生きているっていうタイトル自体が、本当にその周りから見たら、それは生きてるのか本当にっていうような意味合いにはなるんですけど、実際本人たちからしたら、それが僕たちの生き方、生き様みたいな、その意味合いとして皮肉なタイトルにしてるということです。
Kanako, do you want to help me with that?
Well, yeah, of course. So yeah, as you said, like the age 20 is quite a big thing in Japan, and the thing about 20 is that like as he explained is that turning 20 it means like becoming adult, so you have to sort of like accept all the social expectations, and you have to like be aware of the social expectations during upon you. And the Shun is the unique character of sort of the representation of the younger generation who has to deal with all those like social expectations. And that like the title "Bokura Minna Ikiteiru" itself is that the relative translation is like we are all alive, but this is actually rhetorical questions about whether are you alive. Like yeah, so "Bokura Minna Ikiteiru" it's sort of like rhetorical question.
Right.
So like yeah, when you look at the film, you kind of like we want audiences to question whether like they're actually living their lives because they're just like surviving their daily life without having any passions or emotions. So
Right.
we wanted to like draw upon that as well, and so that's what the film tried to achieve through the film. Yeah.
Cool. And the other thing I just wanted to say, first of all, I love this movie. It was
Mm.
so good. And when we spoke earlier today, I mentioned like it starts off and you think, okay, this just, I don't know, it's kind of a normal situation. Then things get a bit strange and then they get horrible. And then they
Mhm.
continue to have these horrible things happening. And it's like a little thing and then another thing and then
Mhm.
another thing. And each and every one of them is so awesome. Like as a film viewer, you see it and you're like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And that's like constantly through the film, all the way up to Yuriko. The first cough, I was like, oh, oh, I mean, amazing, amazing. And it doesn't happen always. You see films, there's a lot of films that are good, they're beautiful, whatever. This one had me to the last second. And the last second, like we talked about this before, but the two of them, you there was kind of a hint that maybe they would kind of solve the problem of Kaicho-san and his henchmen. But when I saw the big pot of curry and they're cooking the curry and then
Mhm.
he adds the poison and I'm like, oh, oh. And first thought, "Ka- kaicho dake janakute, there's more
Mhm.
than one. That's a lot of curry." And then
Mhm.
when
Mhm.
you see them ride off on the bicycles, honestly, I couldn't have been happier. I was like, yes. So
Mhm.
it's like it's a really disturbing movie with a very bizarre kind of happy ending. I really
Yeah.
loved it, and I'm looking forward to watching it again,
Thank you.
and also very much looking forward to future films on youth culture.
Mhm.
But まあ本当に素晴らしかった。ありがとうございます。また今度ぜひいい映画を作ってください。
ありがとうございます。
ありがとうござい
じゃあ、
ます。
どうもありがとうございます。さようなら。
はい。ありがとうございまし
ありがとうございま
た。
した。